guys, what's going on? I know I've been gone for quite some time at this point, which I'm a little bit upset about, but nevertheless I'm back and I kind of wanted to update you guys on what's been going on, mostly with the truck. So I'm going to make this short because I don't want to take up too much time talking. This video is going to be a little bit scatterbrained and kind of all over the place. A lot of stuff going on, but the main thing was we were trying to get the new top end put on and get this thing fired up and running right. That was really the biggest gist, and I was also doing stuff like brakes, drive shaft, you know, steering, stuff like that along the way. So this video is kind of everything up to this date, you know, for the most part, at least all the important parts. But I am still making videos. I'm not quitting YouTube or anything weird like that. I know you guys are probably thought I died or something, but no, I've mainly just been taking time off the videos to focus on my truck, focus on school, focus on things that are really important to me, and not making videos just to upload, because I don't really have a crazy amount of projects right now besides the F100 and my Galaxy's doing the sheet metal. But I don't want to dive into the sheet metal in those cars until I get this truck done. So I was mainly focusing on my truck, you know, making sure I can get everything ready on that, so I can push this project off to the side, I can drive it and enjoy it, and then I can turn around and finish this project and turn around and go ahead and work on the Galaxy. So if you do go on to enjoy today's video, please leave a like. It would really mean a lot to me. I have a ton of time into this video, even though it might not look like it, and there's a bunch of really great people that have helped me out, one of which you'll see is Blueprint Engines. You know, massive thank you to them. Anytime during the video, go down the description, check out their website. It would mean a lot to me if you went through their products. You know, they were really a big help in getting this truck running. So with that being said, we're gonna dive into today's video. There's a lot of cool stuff to share with you, and I hope you guys enjoy. Alright guys, what's going on? So today's video we have our classic cardboard list of stuff we have to do to the F100 before it actually gets running and driving. So hopefully in this video we're going to cover most of the tedious little things like the brakes, steering, seals, bearings, stuff like that. Get all that stuff figured out to where when we get this thing running we can go drive it. So like I said, I've got to do, I think, brake line, I got to run the rear brake line, do bearing seals, proportioning valve, put the steering in and align it, just do a bunch of little tedious stuff. So I want to kind of go over a lot of the stuff that I missed on the last video covering the disc brake swap, kind of walk you guys through that process again. And hopefully by the end of this video we'll have basically everything. We'll have everything to steer it, everything to stop it, and then in a following video we'll obviously have something to move it. So hopefully we get a lot done today. So I've got this thing back up in the air and you're probably wondering, like, why did I take the wheel off when I just spent all that time putting this thing together? Well, I know I'm not the only person that's done this, but there's a back seal that goes on the brake rotor and you can see that is clearly not there. So yeah, that's great. That means I gotta take the caliper off, take the freaking rotor back off, take the bearings out, slide the whole thing out, put the seal in, and then put it all back together. So I basically did all this for nothing. Yay. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this swapped out and put it back together. Let's see how fast I can do this. Time me, 5 minutes. I can do this in another 5 minutes. Yeah. Oh no, my paperwork. Oh. That's 5 minutes. Dang it! Close enough. What would you drive the car thing? 10. 10. Yeah, I'm good. So I've got the brake system figured out basically on the front of my truck. So before I go ahead and put the wheel back on, I got my new steering rods. These are just some Rock Auto stuff. I think everything's Moog. So what I'm gonna do is I have the old setup right here, then the new drag link. So I'm gonna pretty much just put everything together, match the two up, then go ahead and mock it up in the truck. So I at least have some form of steering. We can line it up later and align it, but I did want to go ahead and match these things up and put it all together. Alright, we got everything all buttoned up under here, so all of our steering is all good. It does work, and it seems like it's relatively aligned, at least to the point where I can get it to an alignment shop. But we were noticing that this steering is now, that since we rebuilt it, I mean, yeah, the steering wheel's not straight, but just the littlest bit of steering, you know, input moves that front tire. Yeah, that thing moves. Anything I do, it moves. So even just the littlest bit, I mean, you guys can physically see there's no play in this thing anymore. It's tight. So that was really cool. Pretty happy with that. So that'll be drivable. We'll just have to take it to the alignment shop. Now I'm gonna start running the rear brake line. So I got a bunch of this to replace this ugly junk because I painted the rear end, so I don't want a bunch of ugly brake lines in it. So I'm just gonna flare this and then start rebending all the brake lines, and then hopefully it all goes together pretty quickly. But yeah, we're not gonna have a bunch of this ugly junk on the back of the truck, considering the rear end's nice and painted. Okay, so this has been bugging me. So as I said, nice new pretty brake line, freshly painted rear end. I don't want to put those nasty crusty lines back in this thing. So as you can see, our banjo bolt fitting, we put a bolt in here just so it didn't, you know, leak everywhere, because we didn't want any sort of. Okay, Sean. We didn't obviously want fluid all over the paint, so that went in. So now, if I remember right, this guy, I mean, obviously, as you guys can see, this stuff's all fresh. And I'm not the kind of guy to work with freshly painted pretty stuff, so this is all new to me. But there is a point where I have to realize that it's my truck. I'm gonna drive it and beat the crap out of it. It can look nice, but don't not do something on it just because I'm worried about scratching it, if that makes sense. I just gotta do it. Yeah, the good thing is I power washed everything, so all the brake fluid that was inside of these is now out. So I don't even have to worry if, like, this banjo bolt fitting is gonna leak brake fluid onto the rear end. It's not, thankfully. It's the original vent hose. I'm not gonna change it, doesn't need to be. It's still nice and soft and seems to work pretty well. So we're just gonna run it. Man, working around this painted rear end, it scares the crap out of me, I will admit. See, that's the thing, it's like, I don't know if it'll pick it up on camera, but it's all dusty right here. Like, just from sitting. So like, I have to get under here with a rag and like wipe this thing down. That's just so weird. Let me get under my truck, clean my rear end, guys, and wipe it down with a microfiber before a show. You guys are probably also looking at my amazing C-notch that I did with a 110 welder, like when I was I think I was 18 when I put that in. So, but it's still boxed in and it still works. I'm gonna redo it eventually. I'll redo it once we do the Crown Vic swap. This frame, I'll take it down and I'll redo a bunch of stuff on it. Alright, got my brake line made. This just goes to show you do not need a brake line bender, you do not need a bunch of fancy tools, and you do not need a pre-bent brake line. Made that from scratch out of the spool. You guys watched me do it, and I'm pretty dang happy with the way that came out. I mean, it looks pretty symmetrical. Yeah, definitely happy with that. The one thing that always bugs me with brake lines, especially with the last one, is it didn't quite fit right. So I had a lot of straight bends that were just kind of wavy to take up space, instead of cutting and shortening it, and then it just went way up, and then it was squiggly and it was rusty, and it just bugged the crap out of me. So that was something I wanted to fix, especially now that we're looking underneath and everything's painted. So I'm really happy with that. So yeah, brake system's almost done now. All right guys, back to our regular scheduled program. Finally, we're gonna start getting this engine fixed, tear down, actually show you guys what happened, and ultimately getting it ready to fire it up again. In the meantime, I went ahead and I fixed up the brake system. I added a little adjustable prop valve in there so my rear brakes don't lock up. I got pretty much the brake system ran, steering ran. My drive shaft is done, so I have that. So now we can put our new drive shaft in. You can see it's got a 1350 yoke on the back of it now, which is rad. So I won't have to worry about breaking it. And really, basically everything but the engine is ready to go now. So everything's new, all new suspension, steering, bushings, driveline stuff, it's all new. Everything in this truck is new but the body at this point. I've gone through and redone everything. So now we're gonna go and tear down this motor like I was showing earlier in other videos. This was our issue that we were having. So basically, I ran too short of a push rod, and I ended up, you know, having such a crazy articulation with the camshaft that it actually lifted these studs up. I don't know if you guys will be able to see it, but this stud is way higher than this one. So yeah, so let's at the stud. These heads are kind of junk until I put a set of screw-in studs, or if I don't think I ever will, but we have a set of aluminum to replace them. So I'm gonna go ahead and tear this thing down with Sean, and then we're gonna get the new top end mocked up, show you guys what we got going on, and hopefully get it all installed. At all. Howdy doody, bitch. Howdy. Alright, so one of the things I wanted to check while I had this thing apart is all the lifters to make sure that they're still all in good shape. Because these are new lifters with a used camshaft, so you guys aren't going to be able to tell that they look all good. As you can see the shine, it's all nice and consistent. That thing's still in good shape. We'll pop that back in and we'll go on our way. So I just want to make sure these are all good. I'm going to periodically check this. We're probably going to do unlike the last engine, we're probably going to service this one a lot more. Whether we change intakes, change camshafts, change parts on it, but I want to get inside of it a lot more. Obviously I had a lot of money in this motor now, so I'm not just gonna bang it off rev limiter and treat it like I treated the last motor. The last motor I kind of intentionally wanted it to break to make a really cool video out of it. That never happened, surprisingly. That motor was a true tank, so this one I think we're going to take a lot more care of and not try to break it. If it blows up, it's going to be a very sad video, I'll tell you that much. But we'll roll through, check all these things out, make sure they all look good, and then put them all back in. Alright guys, now is the fun part of the video where I get to dive in and show you guys finally what is actually going to go on this engine. So we're not going to run cast heads anymore. You guys saw we had that stud issue. Instead of just drilling and tapping thread studs into those heads, we have to go for something better. So check this out. So I've been working for this for a couple weeks now, and we finally got them here on the bench lined up. This is our top end package we're going to be putting on my F100. So, and as you can see, we have a pretty stout setup. Starting off with the most important thing here, we have a set of blueprint engines, aluminum cylinder heads. You can see right there on the front of these things. They look awesome. I cannot wait to run these things on the F100. And as you can see, these are a nice new set. I went ahead and test fit everything, so they might be a little bit greasy and dirty because I was test fitting them in the F100 to make sure how everything fit and worked. But these things are awesome. They're a nice set of 60cc aluminum cylinder heads. They're 190s. You can see we have our nice double valve springs in there for our cam already. I went ahead and opted to a set of 7/16 studs, so we can use a set of 7/16 roller rockers, as well as the comp cam guide plates, which I put in there afterwards. So all this stuff is already done, so we can just put them on and assemble. So I've done all the dirty work already, but you can see as I lift this thing up, we have a nice combustion chamber there. Nice polished valves. This thing just looks awesome. I cannot wait to put this thing on. And if you guys recall, I have a dome piston, so this thing will just barely creep inside of the combustion chamber. We're probably gonna land up in that, 10.5 at least. Compression ratio, so I got to take a couple measurements once we get the motor together. I still got to measure, the head gasket thickness, the deck clearance, the head size, and all that stuff, and do all the math. And then at the end of the video, once we get it all together, I'll come back and give you guys my actual final compression numbers. I have a good feeling it's going to be above 10.5 on a stock stroke motor, so that's pretty cool. Sounds like a motor that's going to rev, so that's really cool. And then moving on to the intake, so we have a Speedmaster single plane intake. You can see the volume on that thing is pretty rad. Which I think will help us in that higher RPM range, but this thing's pretty sweet. So this is actually a more bang for your buck kind of manifold. This thing's pretty cheap. I think I picked this thing up on sale for like $200-ish, not entirely sure if I remember right. but it's not, you know, a top of the line manifold. This will definitely get you by for a good amount of time, which is what I was going for. I was just trying to get this thing going. And this is our quick fuel. This is a dual feed, dual pump, mechanical secondary 600 CFM. I wish I got a 650. I ended up getting I've had this 600 for a while now. We'll be breaking in the motor on this carburetor, and then we'll probably opt to a bigger jetted 650 later when we actually dyno this thing, or fuel injection. I haven't quite figured that out yet, but you know, this is what we're going to be running on it for right now. This is pretty much a brand new unit. I broke the White Galaxy's engine in when we first got that thing fixed with it, so it's had a little bit of runtime, so I know it's good and set up right, and everything else should go together pretty easily. The one thing we're also going to be doing, just for some maintenance, is we're also putting a set of 7/16 studs from ARP in this thing, so that should be pretty rad. You know, we won't have any reused head bolts in this thing. Because for the Arizona trip, we had to cut a ton of corners, which really pissed me off, so now that I have time, I'm not going to cut any of those corners anymore. So, we got a nice top end package we got to start installing here, so I'm going to go ahead and get those head studs put on, drop these heads on, and start putting this thing together. It's going to go together really quickly. So I'm going to leave a link down in the description of Blueprint Engines. You know, go check them out if you're looking for something like cylinder heads or even a full-blown crate engine. These guys have everything from Dodge, Mopar, Chevy, big block and small block. They can set you up with a badass engine for your project car and get you on the road pretty quickly. Take it from someone like me who's spent $1,000 rebuilding a set of cast cylinder heads at one point. For the same amount of money, you can go on Blueprint Engines website, pick up a set of brand new aluminum cylinder heads for your ride, make a ton of power, take some weight off the front end of your vehicle, and ultimately make it run a heck of a lot better. So treat your engine right, go down the description, look at Blueprint Engines website, go ahead and pick out a set of cylinder heads that'll best work for your application and get some power out of your engine. I wanted to give a massive thank you to Blueprint Engines for working with me on today's video. Without them, this entire video would have not have happened, and I was having a huge issue getting my engine back together, affording all the parts to do this. So I really do appreciate the companies that helped me. Blueprint Engines was definitely the biggest one helping me get the engine back together at this point. So I want to give a massive thank you to them, and like I said, go down in the description and check out their products. So go down in the description of my video and check out a wide range of their products they got to offer. But for the time being, I gotta get this motor back together, so let's start putting this thing together. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and put the studs in now, but before I do so, I've kind of cleaned the top of the piston, so I just want to make sure the cylinder wall's got some sort of lubricant. So I'm going to go ahead and put some motor oil, just a little bit, around the side of this cylinder, so when it comes up the cylinder deck, you know, it's not going to totally a dry start. So I went ahead and I picked up some of these. These are I think the stock stud is a 7/16 style. I realize these are 1/2 inch. I don't know why I said 7/16 earlier. So this head stud is a 7/16. Therefore, the head is like universal 289, 302, 351. Therefore, it has a 1/2 inch stud hole. So what these are is they're basic little spacer plates, and they go from 7/16 to 1/2 inch. So it's basically like little dowels, but they're washers. So if I pull one of these out, you can see it'll slip right in the socket of the head, and it's a little washer, and it'll basically fill that gap. So it's like its own little centering dowel, and this will make sure that when you torque this down, it's actually, the stud's actually making contact with the head. It's not hollow. So I'm gonna put these in. So you can see these kind of slip in, and if I kind of just lift the head a little bit, they'll pop in just like that, and now the head is centered on that stud, because before it was just a little bit off. So these will center the whole head, make sure everything is perfectly centered. Alright, so before I go ahead and put on the other cylinder head, I just wanted to point this out. So like I was saying, in terms of compression ratio, I wanted to check that. And how I'm going to do that, you can see this piston's all the way up at the surface. We are at top dead center. I verified that based off of the mark on the dampener down there, the harmonic balancer. So we're going to focus on this piston right here. And this one specifically, I'm going to go ahead and take a caliper. You can see it's not quite perfectly flat on the surface. It's going to be hard to show on camera. It's actually down just the tiniest little bit. So what I'll be doing is taking a caliper, I'll run that caliper down, you know, until it's flush on the surface, and then I'll take that measurement, which as you can see, it's not 0. So mine specifically, this is probably off. I'm gonna have to do it without the camera in my hand, but I'm gonna go ahead and take that measurement, factor that into my deck clearance when I'm going ahead and figuring out my compression ratio, so we can actually get this thing right and know exactly what this thing's gonna be.
Way easier. Alright, so now I'm going to go and explain what I'm doing right now. So I got the heads torqued on, those are good. Now we're setting our rocker arms, and the first thing I'm doing is setting the guide plate. Now I have a stock push rod in this thing right now, it's going to be in the right spot. But right now I'm setting the guide plate, which as you can see I can move both these left and right. What I did was I just lightly, I could spin these studs by hand still. So I just spun them down, put the rockers on. These are 7/16 studs, 7/16 1/6 rockers. These are just Speedway rocker arms. They're very, just bare bones. They're just something that'll get the thing running that I had. And I would have used my set of comps. My comps were 5/16 pedestal mount, and I didn't even notice it. So this is what I have. This is what I have to work with. So we're gonna run these, and they should work fine. But what I am gonna do is make sure, as you can see, this roller can go left and right on the valve stem. So I wanted to make sure that these are perfectly centered. And what I'll do is I'll basically get this thing aligned, because this set of cylinders heads has a larger set of valves, so it's not necessarily going to be perfectly parallel. They're probably going to be a little bit out because the valves are larger than these openings here. So I'm going to set those real quick. I don't know how well I'll be doing it because the camera's like right where I should be standing, but I'll basically have that one roughly around there, that one roughly around there. I'll go ahead and I'll reach in from the back side and just snug them with a wrench. Get that one centered, and then I'll pull this guy off. Pull this off, pull this guy up, make sure it stays centered. And when this guy comes off and it's centered, we can go ahead and torque this guy down. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that on all of these, then come back and we're gonna measure for push rod length because I haven't done that yet. Make sure we get that set correctly, and then order push rods, and we should be able to get the rest of the engine put together.
Alright guys, I actually wasn't going to film this because it wasn't too big of a topic. I just want to make sure if you guys are also having this issue, you guys can understand how to go through it. So I've spent the last day kind of figuring out my push rod length. And on my F100 specifically, these blueprint heads, the one thing that I've noticed is this accepts a abnormally large push rod for a small block, a short deck small block at that. A stock push rod length is about 6.875 inches, and I'm looking into running around a 7.375 inch push rod, which normally isn't too big of a deal. However, the one thing that I was noticing is when I articulate, what the f was that? But the one thing that I was noticing is when I get that correct geometry set and the push rod's correct, I don't have very many threads left on the stud itself, which means I would need longer studs or something of that nature. But you got to keep in mind, these things are these are hydraulic lifters and they're not pumped up right now. So I have an adjustable push rod in this lifter real quick. I wanted to point this out. You can see how that thing moves because it's not making any oil pressure right now. It's not pumping that lifter up. So that moves about 1/8 of an inch. And if you can catch where I'm going with this, 1/8 of an inch is a lot of adjustment, a major difference in push rod length. So that can easily cause you to bend a valve, kick a push rod out of the motor. Bunch of damage can happen. So what I'm doing right now is I have just a donor lifter. Now what this is I just took a regular stock lifter. It's in good condition, there's nothing wrong with it. I took the insides out of it and I'm making a solid piece to go in here. So I'm kind of making my own solid lifter just to rotate the motor over and not have that issue to where the lifter is kind of collapsing on itself. I wanted to make sure that stays solid so your push rod length is accurate. The other thing you can do is put a Waylite or valve spring in it. Right now that's just not something I wanted to do, so I'm just going to go to make a solid roller, get that thing spun over, get my push rod measured. Oh dang, that's a vibe. Look at that. That's just our mock-up real quick so I can get an idea of what everything was going to fit like. But dang, if you guys don't remember what this thing looked like when we went to Arizona, I'll kind of overlay it real quick. But the difference, oh Man, I cannot wait to hear this thing when it starts. Just looks awesome. So I'm super happy. I realized these Morosos were actually a tall valve cover, not just a regular stock style. So I can fit them with the roller rockers. So this is roughly what we're going to be staring at every single time we open the hood of my F100. And I am incredibly excited. So with that being said, I'm not going to waste any more time. Our push rods should show up really any minute. And once those get here, we can start getting them in the guide plates and get the rest of the motor back together. Hopefully fire this thing up very, very shortly.
Is it even leaking oil yet?
Nope, that's not good. Oh, great.
And it is terrifying. It is.
Woo! Well,
No. This one was the next one. But you need to swap that.
Alright, you know how to check for fuel pressure? You know how to turn the fuel pump on, Marty?
yep.
You ready?
Yeah.
God damn.
He's rowdy.
Alright guys, I'm pretty stoked. That sounded freaking rad with the open headers and whatnot. That was a little obnoxious, but we figured, you know, we're gonna be impatient and we didn't have a cooling system or anything. We just wanted to fire it up real quick. There's no valve train noise. Everything sounded really good. So we're gonna hook the exhaust off right now, get the cooling system hooked up so we can let it idle for about, you know, probably about 30 minutes or so, then come back, drain the oil, do the valve adjustment, and we should be good to drive this thing, so. Okay, I'm gonna try to, oh, this is gonna make such a mess. So
You got this?
I dumped all the coolant into this. I can't see anything.
Dude, is that Mountain Dew?
Oh, dude.
Oh, you got it. You're perfect right there.
Dude. Oh, look at that skill.
That's some like really green Mountain Dew.
Dude, that is.
Oh yeah, you gotta have more horsepower.
Well, I used it, broke the motor in, took it to Arizona, and I was like, I'm not buying all new coolant. So I dumped it into this. And it's actually pretty clean. So we're just gonna run it. And hopefully it doesn't have a bunch of stuff in it. Oh, look at all that dirt in the bottom. Just not gonna dump the bottom part in it. Oh man, this is going way better than I thought it was going to.
Yeah, go ahead.
No.
Now we got that. Unfortunately, yeah. See, now we're starting to get that valve train noise a little bit, yeah. Alright guys, so that takes us back to where we are now. Okay, so fast forward, back again. So it does run. There's a slight noise. I'm pretty positive it's a valve train issue because it fluctuates with RPM. I don't think it's a rod knock. I don't think it's any sort of crank issues. At least that I'm pretty positive. Because keep in mind, we drove this thing off the trailer and into the show in Arizona, and it was fine. Bring it back here, change the top end, change the valve train, had a couple loose rockers. I've since changed them, and I'm in the process of putting thicker oil in it, so hopefully the thicker oil will keep the lifter pumped up. It has a Melling 68 high volume oil pump, so it makes like 55 pounds at any sort of RPM, and at idle it makes like 30, so it should be plenty. But, you know, like I said, you know, this is a older block. It's like a 45-year-old block that's in this thing, 50-year-old block. So I'm thinking maybe the tolerances are a little bit opened up more than they would be normally. We did not home this block. This block was 30 over. We left it 30 over, so it's a little bit larger clearance than it probably should be. But nevertheless, it works. So we're going to try the thicker oil. We're going to try a couple different things. Try to get rid of this noise before we drive it. The brakes are not bled at this moment. The drive shaft's in. Everything else works. The only thing it has not done is the brakes are not being bled, and I did that on purpose to prevent myself from being stupid and driving it while the motor was having issues. So I will not bleed these brakes until this motor is perfectly running. As you can probably understand, I have a lot of money in this thing at this point. Between the suspension, the chassis, the differential, the third member, I mean, the rear end alone cost me about $1,000 to redo. So that alone, between painting it and the brakes and the differential and all that stuff gets expensive pretty quick. So the last thing I want to do is take this motor I've just spent all this time building, go out and grenade the bottom end because I didn't take care of it initially. So I hope you guys can understand why it's taking me so long to get this stuff done. But a lot of the time I am out here by myself because my friends are at work doing, you know, their 9-to-5 job. I'm here working on this stuff and doing school. So it's just purely me working on this thing. So it takes a little bit of time for me to kind of figure out issues and address them and, you know, ultimately get them fixed. But anyways, I wanted to thank you guys a ton for watching this entire video. It means a lot to me. Massive thank you to Blueprint Engines once again. Please go down in the description of my video. You know, check out the wide range of their products they got. full engines, cylinder heads. You know, they make a wide range of different cylinder heads for this truck. You know, 289, 302, 351, they have a bunch of different cylinder head sizes for that. Small block Chevy, small block Dodge, you know, and big block for those same brands. There's all sorts of different parts that you can kind of hop up your engine with. And as you see on this one, this thing wants to rev. This thing wants to rev so bad, and I want to get it driving because this thing's going to make some serious power. So anyways, that being said, like the video if you did enjoy it. Let me do you think down in the video. Let me do you think down in the comments below. I do have a Galaxy video that I did update on those cars, which I might post next in the next couple days, just so I can get that video going. But it'll give me time to kind of focus on this thing and hopefully get the engine fixed and figured out in the next week. It's not broken, but just eliminate this noise. So be patient with me, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.